objects that you create will persist over time. So file formats, these are almost near religious fights, so I thought a good couple of kangaroos having a go at it would be a good illustration. I'm going to talk about two particular file formats that are important for digital archiving, and the first is JPEG 2000. And JP2, as it's more widely known, is a wavelet compression. It's lossless encoding, meaning that you can take a 200 megabyte TIFF and shrink it down to about a 50 megabyte JP2 without losing any information. So that saves on hard drive space. It has 12 parts. The standard itself has 12 parts. And of particular interest to our world are these three parts. Part 1, which is the core system, which is an ISO standard. Part 6, which is the compound image file format, which is what's commonly known as JP2, and that's the bit that describes the tiling of images, and I'll show an example of that in just a second. And then Part 10, which is coming along, and I think this is interesting for many museum collections because this is volumetric images, so 3D imaging stored in a wavelet compression, and there's also motion graphics. So the plant folks, and being a recovering botanist, the plant specimens, we've had an easy go of it because plants are flat. So it's easy to image specimens. We can do a lot of specimens with relatively inexpensive equipment. And so there are a lot of plant specimens out in the wild now on the web. So what I'm showing here is a screenshot from the Missouri Botanical Gardens system Tropicos using this JPEG 2000 image and a viewer that I'll describe. So you see a thumbnail of the image, and then the red square is indicating what you have zoomed into. And then this is the zoomed in portion. And this works in a low bandwidth environment because this 200 megabyte image doesn't have to be sent down to an individual user's browser. Instead, you just have to send the web resolution, smaller size JPEG, 72 DPI JPEG to their browser that's at that zoomed in resolution. So this gives a way of viewing really high resolution images in a low bandwidth environment, and it saves space in the, as well. So the hurrahs and hisses, the good points and the bad points of JP2. You can store a single file for access and preservation. So you can keep this one JP2, put it in your server, and then every time it's requested, you can tile off the pieces that are needed, the request, the size that's being requested. It is standards-based, and it's open, so you can build your own applications around it. Then it saves drive space. Now, when you think about, a 4 gigabyte, the drives, we keep hearing drive space goes down all the time, and this is 4 gig, but not when you're talking about server storage, and not when you're talking at museum scale. Millions of objects, hundreds of millions of objects. Disadvantage of JPEG 2000 is that it doesn't have wide native support in many apps. Most browsers can't open up a JPEG 2000 image by default, so you have to have then an intermediary application to decode that image. But there's an open source option now. It's this server called J2K, confusingly spelled like Jitoka, but pronounced as J2K. The developers thought they were being very clever, and instead they've just confused the masses. And then there's also reports of data loss. Now, in my experience, we have hundreds of thousands of images, millions of images, tens of millions of images that are encoded in JPEG 2000, and I have not seen the loss of data, but it has been reported that you can get corruption. Again, in my practice, I've never seen that. PDF-A, so the portable document format and the archival version of that, is an ISO standardized version of PDF suitable for long-term preservation. And what PDF-A identifies as a profile for electronic documents to ensure that they can be open in the same way, that they are repeatable over time. And what the PDF-A format does is it makes the file self-contained, therefore also makes it bigger. So it's, you've probably opened up a PDF before and seen something about font conversion or typeface conversion, some little window. That goes away in PDF-A because the fonts are embedded into the file itself, as is the media files. Everything is all together. So the PDF-A is a package, if you will, of metadata and data and the files themselves. Considering metadata, yay, Suzanne. The great thing about standards is there are so many to choose from. There's a never-ending list of the new standard, and people are creating new standards all the time, and that's good. But what you should think about is that your metadata need to be preserved. You need to take as much care in preserving your metadata as you take in preserving your digital objects. That the descriptive information provides the content and the context for indexing and reuse. An image of a penguin that's sitting on your drive doesn't necessarily announce to you, the user, that it is an image of a penguin. You need metadata to help you define what that image is, or what's contained within that image. And you can bundle the metadata within files, like JPEG 2000, you can write into the header of the descriptive metadata about the image. EXIF, if you're familiar with digital cameras, every phone now is producing EXIF metadata, which is about the size, where the screen resolution, the tilt of the camera. And Adobe XMP, which is the extensible metadata platform, I believe, it puts metadata into the docs, into the images. And so you think many times, like with management systems, you have the digital files, and then you have a database that describes those digital files. So you have a museum management system with linked images. Well, that's good, but if something happens to the museum management system, then you just have these images without any descriptive metadata. So I think it's wise to commit metadata to the file system. So write this out as XML using some standard and put it there alongside the file so that the digital file and its metadata live together on the file system, live on the hard drives, and then can be replicated and backed up and moved around in ways that I showed before. And so here another cautionary tale, the dodo. Apparently they were delicious. The Darwin core descriptive metadata could be written out in XML alongside the JPEG 2000 and stored on the file system. So if we looked to the future, if we imagined Sherborn gazing into a crystal ball and thinking about what might be, we talk about electronic publications. And they've been happening now, and they have been for years. Every publication that you had in print was electronic right up until the point it was printed. So we have electronic publications, and we should take care in ensuring the heterogeneity and the diversity and the digital management of items with systems as with printed and bound books. So there are very few books in libraries that are kept that there's just a single copy. The great thing about libraries is that the contents are in other places, and so you can ensure that the materials are available in multiple places. I think the monolithic libraries have failed over time, and as Neil said, if only Callimachos had made a backup, then we wouldn't have to worry about the Digital Library of Alexandria or the Library of Alexandria. But they have failed over time, and these monolithic electronic archives will fail too. That's why, again, you need to sort of spread the love around the world, spread your digital files around. So when you think of the kind of technology diversity, the technological diversity that you need, you can think about it the same way that you'd like biological diversity, that you need a meadow and not a monoculture. And finally, if you thought I was going to give you an answer to all of the problems, I'm sorry to say I cannot. There is no silver bullet, nor are there magic unicorns that can solve these problems for us. The best that we can do is to make the best decision today, and to stay up with technology changes and best practices. And this is where the library and the archive and museum professionals come in, because this is what we do, is stay up on the best practices and technologies, and this is an important role for our museums and the evolution of our museums. We also then can evaluate and experiment and document and lead, and that document is an important part. It's important for us to do these samples and tests and then to talk about them, and to talk about both the successes as well as the failures. The failures are as important as the things that go right. And finally, move to stable new technologies when necessary. So we used to store everything as TIFF images, and then JPEG 2000 came along, and after enough time and enough test, we said, okay, that's good. We can move to that technology. So just as there's no end to curation of the museum objects, we're not putting any museum professionals out of business by digitizing materials, and the museum objects themselves need to be curated over time. So then do the digital objects. They also need to have curation over time, and this is an ongoing task, and this is the responsibility, I believe, of museums today. Thank you. Stunned silence, yes, done it again. Great. I'll be available afterwards. Oh, Chris.
Chris, that lovely picture of big resource to store digital objects in 3 different continents. Who pays? What's the financial model behind that?
Magic unicorns. No. Again, I think that this is the responsibility of the museums. I think that the technology infrastructure that we build is as important as keeping the gates open and the lights on for visitors. So I see this as a quasi-administrator in my institution as the responsibility of museums, and it just needs to become part of museum operations.
When you have standards that use JP2, PDFA, in those standards, over time they're going to change.
That's right.
You retroactively have to then redo all of those things?
Redo all of the images? Yeah, migration, sure. So, move the files to different formats, and that becomes easier. Processing time, processors become faster, and drive space does become cheaper. So it is easy to, it takes a while, but you can still move. We did that. Someone will write a conversion software, and if you go with the group think and you adopt a file format that may be bleeding edge, but everybody else is doing it, then you're going to have a big enough problem that there will be a converter.
The key point is to remember a lot of standards are also evolving organisms. Standard General Markup Language from the Pentagon in the 1950s is what is PDF now.
Yeah.
And they're all based on ASCII text. So conversion is always possible.
Very good point. Yep. Thank you.